Fun. Wow. Talk about inappropriate music. I'm going to change that. Okay, that was a hangover from the last broadcast, so I apologize. But hey, I wanted to welcome everyone. Got a lot of people viewing from a lot of different areas of my life. So I appreciate that. And I'm going to talk through some things today that are kind of rough to talk about. So I apologize in advance if I seem a little bit awkward or off kilter or not my usual uh, peppy whatever self, if that even is a thing. I don't know. But if things seem a little awkward, that's why. So just know that it's nothing bad. It's just that this is sometimes a hard thing to talk about. But it is Mental Illness Awareness Week, and because of that, I wanted to have a time where I reached out on all of my different channels and talked more um, about that, about not only my struggles with it over the years, but also that, this is something that's not as uncommon as people think. And sometimes there's a stigma attached to it. And so sometimes the best way to attack a stigma is to confront it directly. And so that's exactly what I'm doing. And so I want to say up front that I do have a degree in psychology, but it's a bachelor's degree. That doesn't make me qualified to talk about literally any of this stuff from a professional standpoint. I can only relay what I remember and know and experience and that sort of thing. This is not in any way meant to, you know, diagnose or treat or anything like that. So if you are in a place where you're thinking that, gosh, this sounds like I need to go deeper with this kind of thing or figure out what to do about it, then I encourage you to seek out a professional in the psychology field because that's really a better way to go about it. Trust me. So anyway, let's just start talking a little bit. And if you guys have questions, there is a chat. What should happen here is that I will be able to see your chat messages and put them up on the screen. It's not always flawless, so if you chat something to me and I don't see it, please don't be offended. We like to be unoffendable around here, so just know that that is something you have an option of. So if you have a question or just want to say hi and say, "Gosh, DJ, you sure are awesome," you can do that. But anyway, so talking through the first topic this week I want to tackle is one of the more common ones and common in my life as well, and that is depression. And it is something that is very commonly misunderstood, but oftentimes a little more experienced than people think. A lot of times people have what would be technically classified as a depressive episode and not realize it's what they've gone through. So sometimes it can feel like just kind of a melancholy kind of a thing, and just like just sad kind of thing. And we say, oh yeah, I'm just feeling depressed. This random chick on YouTube says, "Gosh, DJ, you're awesome and cute." I don't know what's up with that. I don't know what's up with these stalkers. I'm gonna have to do some filtering or something, but that's my wife. Don't freak out. That's my wife. But anyway, as far as depression goes, this is something where it is a medical condition. It's not just a mood. People get confused about that because of the way it presents itself a lot of the times. And if you're going through it, it can initially feel like a mood. And so that makes it really difficult to kind of get through a lot of the times. And there's varying things you can do with this to understand if you need to do medical treatment or things like that. That's where dealing with a professional comes in. I will say, full disclosure, that I have in the past, about 9 years ago. Well, let me think about this for a second. Do math, never do math live, even if it's like single digit numbers. But about 8 years ago, I was actually dealing with this and dealt with it for quite a long time before finally seeking out some professional help. And when I finally did, fortunately, the person I went to was like, I could prescribe something, but I don't think we're there. I think that with the right uh, prayer and just proactiveness to treat this, it'll be okay. And so I'm going to talk about that a little later. on in this broadcast. I'm going to talk about some of the ways that I've dealt with it in the past, how I'm dealing with it now, and how sometimes this is a good first step. And if this doesn't work, then going on to the next steps, that is treatment, medication, that sort of thing. But you've got to understand, when it comes to depression, this isn't something where you can just snap out of it. I really, really wish it was, because my life would be a lot easier if it was. But what depression is basically a neurochemical imbalance in the brain where, I probably shouldn't go too deep into this because honestly, it's really not what I'm here for. There's a lot of resources to get that professional opinion and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is that when it comes to depression, you have to understand, first of all, that it's nothing wrong with you. It is a medical imbalance of serotonin levels in your brain is what basically is causing the depression. Now, fortunately, we were created with this wonderful machine of a body that can a lot of the times fix itself. And I don't want to say that that's 100% of the time. Absolutely not. But in my case, it has been known to work this way, where I can actually get out of that depression. It's not snapping out of it. And in fact, the last time in 2004 when I really dealt with this, it took about 4 or 5 months to really get out of it. And that's been the case with this time around as well. It really does take some time to just work your way through it, and practice the right self care, and find that right combination of things to actually deal with the depression itself. So let's kind of nail this down a little bit. In fact, I'm going to actually go to a a site here. I wonder if yeah, I think it's okay to put things up on the screen, right? I think that's fair. So let's do that. Let's share our screen, and let's figure out the right button to push to do that. Okay, so this is Mayo Clinic and this sort of thing. There's lots of websites that are out there that describe this, but what I want to get to, and let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Control plus. There we go. I'm a technology guy. I know this stuff, right? But as far as symptoms go, these are the kind of things that really most people recognize as depression. Those feelings of sadness, and that is something that is oftentimes. And it says it down below here, but it can be accompanied with anxiety. In my case, that was absolutely the thing, and we're going to get to that in a minute. What I think kind of triggered my recent depression episode, but just to understand what it feels like. You The biggest things for me are usually the feelings of hopelessness, um, um, irritability, and frustration. These are more common for me. I don't usually have angry outbursts, although sometimes they'll feel like it for me. I've been blessed with a pretty chill demeanor, even when I'm doing this. But a lot of times, this is something where it doesn't feel like something that's depression, but it can be a thing where you just get angry and lash out at people, and do weird things that you don't really expect. Um, but this was actually the most um, interesting for me, is the lack of loss of interest. This can be called anhedonia as well. It's if you're feeling anhedonic, you are pretty much incapable of feeling joy. Now, remember, joy is not happiness. Joy is a condition of general completeness, I guess you could say. And so that it's a deeper part of this. Anhedonia is actually a deeper condition within depression, and it can be on its own as well. It can be, but in this case, this was actually the one that really struck me as, oh, hey, normal things that used to bring me a lot of joy are not bringing me a lot of joy. I think there's something wrong here. This actually in my case actually occurred before the sadness and all that kind of other stuff. This was the first warning sign that I really should have paid more attention to. I chalked it up, and I'm just going to get on the soapbox for just a minute here and say that I chalked this up to being busy. I chalk this up to I've got a lot going on. I don't have time to do these other things. So the what happened in that case is that it's not that I didn't have the time. I could have made the time. It was that I was actually in a state of depression and didn't even realize it yet because I didn't feel sad. In fact, I felt really happy. I was actually really peppy earlier this year. I had some things that I had achieved in 2020 that were carrying through, and things felt really good. But and later on, I'm going to talk a little bit about burnout and how that kind of triggered all this. But or maybe I can just talk about it now. There's no reason not to. It's my show, right? uh, so there's a level of I put so much effort in and had these weird expectations to get out of it that when it didn't go that way, I felt kind of at first I felt betrayed, like how dare you all, not buy all my stuff that I put out there and did all this effort for? How stupid is that? But that's the way it works sometimes. Is that you feel that. But the burnout came when I realized that I just had nothing left. There's nothing left in the tank. I just couldn't. Everything I did was forcing myself to do that. And what ended up happening was I realized that that was something that was happening in things that would normally bring me a lot of joy. If it's a lot of work to, you know, get yourself into the car and go take a drive through the mountains or whatever, that's one thing. For me, I think one of the things that really kind of, you know, snapped into my attention was video games. It's like I used to really love playing video games, and nope, I was not enjoying it at all. In fact, I found myself more frustrated the more I was doing that sort of thing, and so that was a trigger, or not a trigger, but an indicator for me that something was wrong. Is that loss of interest in things? But the big thing for me, as my wife will tell you, is the weird sleep cycles. Now, this is what actually, in my case, causes the most medical part of the depression. Because when you don't sleep properly, your melatonin levels do not restore themselves to balance properly. And so later this week, we're going to talk a little bit about bipolar and how this can actually trigger some things like that as well, where you're just up and then down and up and down and up and down. And the way that works. But basically, that's a big thing. The other thing that really was a key indicator for me was this small little things that shouldn't be a big deal become a big deal. They you feel like you have nothing in the tank. So yeah, and then other things can be affected too. Weight gain, cough. Yeah, I put on that. And then this actually was another thing that it was something I don't think it was pointed out to me directly, but it is something that I've noticed is that why can't I get things out? I have these thoughts. I'm sitting there outlining things, and I just realized I'm not even displaying it on the screen. My apologies. Huh. So slowed thinking like that, not being on like you normally would be. There's something different, and it's not something where if it happens once or twice, it's a big deal. It's when it's a normal occurrence, and it's just a thing that even if you get a full night's sleep, you're still feeling like just really kind of slow, and it's not things aren't working like they should. Um, yeah, just things like that. But there's some other trouble areas that I wanted to highlight, even if they aren't really things that really are valid for you or me. But this right here was the true progression. This is when I knew something was really not right. Is this feeling of worthlessness and guilt, that sort of thing. Fixating on things I've done in the past, or like literally just being awake in the middle of the night thinking about something you did stupid like 20 years ago, that sort of thing. um, that is where and if you're not there with me spiritually, I apologize, but I don't apologize because this is what I found to be real. And this is something that the counselor that I worked with in 2004 helped me see is that this depression is an opportunity for those little devils, those demons, to really take a hold and try to get in there. And it's there. It's a this is the thing where if things are just not real, if they're just you're feeling these things that don't really matter, that just are not really relevant. That's a good sign of depression. Um, and so Lauren, I want to put your thing up on the screen here. Said, uh, and Lauren and I have actually had conversations before, so I can say effectively that yeah, this is good for us to talk about as people that are trying to make shifts in our lives. This is actually one of the things I wanted to talk about too. So this is that. So I appreciate that. She says, "I feel like you're speaking to me. I appreciate your honesty and clearly outlining your signs and symptoms." And we got more to come. But yeah, that whole okay, you're not any good. You're you how dare you? These kind of things come up, and they come up, and the just really quickly on that, a way to counteract that is by forcing yourself to say, nope, that's not true. That's a lie. And that actually is where I have been able to keep this under a bit of control is by attacking those kind of things when they come up. And I know that's not me. Um, in fact, if there's something to write down, I'm gonna actually put this up on the screen. Um, add this so I can actually put it up on the screen. And I'm actually going to say depression is a condition, not an identity. Depression is a condition, not an identity. And we say things like, I am depressed, or I, we do this. We naturally go to that. If you feel yourself doing that, that's another big sign that something is very wrong. Is that if you're aligning with that and you're becoming okay with it, that's what the enemy wants. And that's really where I truly believe, and reading through the Bible and looking at patterns of behavior, that's where I believe that sort of thing happens. Is we see the enemy try to take a foothold there, and I'm just not having it. It's just not okay, and it's not me. So it's a condition, not an identity. Um, so there's a lot of things too that might happen in a lot of extreme cases, or something that might just be a fleeting thought. Um, but this is what I want to. The thought of of dying or planning out a suicide, that sort of thing, is um, a big deal. And if you're going down that pathway, if you find yourself going down that pathway and you can't snap yourself out of it, this is a concern, and there are resources for you. Um, what I'll say about this, as far as from a medical standpoint, it's these frequent recurring when you can't snap yourself out of those thoughts. You can't recognize them for the lie that they are. That's when you need to go beyond just helping yourself, I guess you could say. And there's other things too that can happen, but I don't want to fixate too much on the symptoms. I want to really focus on understanding how to deal with this in yourself and with others. And so honestly, there's some things about this I wanted to bring up. Yes. I want you to hear this. If you are experiencing depression, it's not your fault. It isn't. Even if you can take steps to fix it, it's still not your fault. It's not something you did wrong. It's just there are a lot of things that cause this, that are just truly um, not of you. They can be part of you, like your chemistry and things like that. You could have a history of this in your family, for example, and sometimes it really can just be, like it says here, hormonal changes or changes in the brain chemistry that happens temporarily, that just happens to have a cascading effect. Um, in college, one of the, I dealt with this a lot because my sleep sucked really badly in college. It was actually I was a security guard and putting myself through college and really did too much. Um, and sometimes just people have literally uh, just times in their lives where their body doesn't produce the right amount of these um, serotonin reuptake neurotransmitters, all those kind of things that just happen. Okay, so this is a big thing to know is that it's not your fault. It's not something that you brought upon yourself, and that's something that I think that I need to hear over and over again. And that's something that I actually have made into a bit of a mantra is that it's not my fault, but I can deal with it. It's not my fault, but I can deal with it. And so that's a big thing here. So, and there's a lot of things I do encourage you to look at these from a medical standpoint. There's a lot of things that can really cause this, and I've seen and experienced myself. Um, for me too, it can be we. Does anybody know about a traumatic or stressful event that's been going on lately that maybe some people are dealing with? Maybe. So it it happens, right? And it's happening now. And the depression and all this kind of stuff is really something the reason I felt like we needed to talk about this is because, hey, you know what? This is something a lot of us are dealing with, or will be dealing with as a backlash. I actually had kind of a delayed reaction with this. A lot of people around me were feeling really depressed in 2020, and I was busy, like, in my own little world, trying to get these books published and feeling like that was had to be done. Well, that also caused some trauma, and so there's a bit of a type of PTSD that I've been going through that is kind of a big deal with this. It can be very not pleasant as far as that goes, and dealing with the uh, just the ways to kind of identifying the causes. For me, that burnout, like I was talking about, was a big thing. For others, it can be loss of a loved one. There's been a lot of that going around. There's a loss of a job or not being able to get a job, even though the things that are going on right now just blow my mind, and the things that they can cause as far as this. Um, so there's some things you can do, and I wanted to make sure to get through this as far as dealing with this. Let me bring this back up on my screen here. Um, one is to um, control your stress level, and I actually started this around April. I was actually working on a new book. Still working, quote unquote, on a new book. um, but I realized that pushing myself too hard was causing a lot of these worse feelings to come up with me. And so I recognized that there were certain things that I needed to back off on. And now I think I might have backed off too much in my personal life and certainly in my professional life, because actually what it caused was a backing off financially, which was not good. It actually can cause financial stress can cause a lot of depression as well. It's a very common cause actually of depressed feelings. But as far as that being an actual ongoing thing, it can be uh, it can cause that if you're not careful. So the other thing is to it says boost your self esteem. I always kind of find that statement funny. Boost your self esteem. There's a lot of things that in my life I will tell you that it's sort of work and sort of don't. Like kind of headspace stuff, the meditations, I have I was trying to just reflect on positive affirmations and things like that. And they do help. But sometimes it actually can cause a little bit of a guilt response. And so you have to be aware of that. That's something that I was not fully prepared for And I actually, I've been dealing with a lot of imposter syndrome for a lot of these last few months because of that. And so it was sometimes boosting that self esteem for me was actually made things worse. But what I'll say is that that was kind of doing that with an expectation and kind of I was trying to get back into an identity instead of trying to actually to take care of myself. And there's a big difference. And so that's what I want to be clear about. But do things that are reminding yourself that that these feelings of worthlessness, those things are a lie. To remind yourself of that and say, you know what, I am not that person. I am someone who is um, created to be something and to do something. Um, I actually found myself going back through an exercise that I'll probably go through another time. I didn't want to take up a ton of time today, but there is a exercise that I went through of saying, okay, when it comes to my time and what I'm spending my time on, where are my passions? What are the things that light me up? And doing whatever I could to do more of that. It's why I do things like this because believe it or not, even though these are kind of stressful to do, these do light me up to know that there are people that are going to be positively impacted by me being vulnerable by this, and so that's something that actually lights me up, and so that's why I do this kind of thing. It has nothing to do with yeah. There's no pitch. There's nothing like that. It's just that sometimes this helps me. So this is actually boosting my self esteem by helping others. um, Reaching out to family and friends is another big one, I think, too. I will agree with that. And a lot of times, what that means, though, is not reaching out and saying, "Yeah, I need somebody to just, tell me I'm pretty and feed me tacos." That's not a bad thing, by the way. It is Tuesday. Maybe we'll go get some tacos after this, honey. Uh, but honestly, um, the reality is that, sometimes you just need to be there. And I'm speaking more to other people that are dealing with people that are in their lives that are depressed. Just being there and being present, not doing anything, not saying anything specifically, is really important. Just giving them just torturing yourself, giving them your full attention, means a ton. It really does. Um, Now, I want to say this: you're not there to cheer them up necessarily, but you're also not there to validate their bad feelings. You're not there to give them pity. This is something that actually is detrimental when you're experiencing depression. Is to have people experiencing pity around you. Oh, that's so hard, and it's our natural response, right? We naturally want to do that to let them know we empathize with their situation, all that kind of thing. But it's actually become sympathy in that case, and sympathy is not good. Empathy is good. So what that means is that you're not going to ignore the way they feel. You you validate it by being appropriately encouraging. And I find in my life confronting the lie for what it is. Like when my wife reminds me that she's proud of me, when I don't feel proud of me, or when I don't feel it, my first response is going to be to say, and I don't want to say anything, and I just don't want to, hear that. But the reality is, with those words in my mind, now that's doing battle against the lies. And you know what? The good wins. I'll just say it that way. But if she's like, "Oh, I'm so sad that you're sad," then all it does is that makes it my identity. And so, if you want to help someone that's in depression, don't necessarily assume that sympathy is something that they really are needing, even though it is exactly what they say they want. They'll probably say that they want. So that's just a quick tip for you. The other thing I'll say is, and let me put myself back on the primary here. If you have a friend that's dealing with depression or a loved one or whatever, and they come to you, do not feel like you have to help them. It's not your job. In a way, it can be a little bit unfair for that is to put that on you. So don't feel that pressure. Don't feel that pressure that you have to help them. Okay, it's something where if you want to, there's ways to be successful at it, but there's nothing bad you can do. Even if you do express sympathy, that's not the end of the world. I'm just saying if you want to get them move forward, you want to help them, don't wallow in that sympathy. Don't let it become that conversation. Don't let it become their identity because depression is not an identity. It's a condition. Okay. So that's something helpful for you there. Don't let it fester. Get treatment. This is something that is, and treatment can mean a lot of things. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to be somebody who's going to say this. I just have a bachelor's degree, and I there's classes that I barely passed. I believe abnormal psych might have been one of those, but but that's the thing. But also making sure that you have a strategy for long term treatment. Um, to kind of prevent that from coming again. That's where those affirmations can come in. That's where the things can actually, they really can help. They really do. Combating those lies is just such a huge thing. You've got to combat those lies and get them out. And so for me also, this is something I'm going to be experimenting with, I guess you could say. But it's something where I talked about that anhedonia earlier, where it's just basically just not experiencing joy. And so it sounds weird, but I'm going to force myself to play some games, and I'm going to record myself doing it and put it up to the Thrive IT YouTube channel that some of you might be viewing here. But yeah, it's something that I am going to be doing as a weird kind of way to have this therapy. And so that's going to be one of my long-term treatment things. So I'm going to turn that off. I might have some other things to display, but honestly, I didn't want to take too much longer today. I just wanted to let you know that sometimes there are other methods of, of self-help, but honestly, it's worth going to a professional or talking to a professional about this, and seeing what they think. Most of them are honest. The vast majority are honest, and there's reasons for that, and so they actually do care. And so, but please do understand too that if your depression has gone on for more than a couple weeks, then there is a level of that being classified as a disorder, and it is a real illness. It is a real thing. It's not just something where just somebody's just having a bad mood or bad day. Depression is a real medical thing that goes on. I want you to recognize that, and so there are things you can do. Sometimes, like I said, the body wants to heal itself. We are designed to do that, and so seek out those opportunities to do just that. Confronting the lies is huge. I wanted to say something about. I didn't plan on doing this, but I did want to say a few things about um, some some suicide risk behaviors because I think it's important for me to say. Um, and I found a resource on this that I kind of like, so I'm going to put this back on the screen here. Um, if you are talking about harming yourself, um, and really, especially if you're talking about it, thinking about it is something that if it becomes a common thing, then guess what? You're talking about it to yourself. Okay, that's the same thing here. And so let me see if I can. Here. Whoa. Um, yeah, sure. We'll accept your cookies. Oh no, sorry guys, didn't expect that. Um, so if you are doing that self talk, then it's time to get some help. Okay. Um, this is something where this can actually be and I'm just going to be blunt and honest with you, is that this is something that as soon as I realized I was having thoughts like this, is when I really snapped out of it and said, "What? No, no, that's not me. No, that's not me." Um, when you are, and I'm going to talk for just a minute to the specifically to the entrepreneurs in the room. Uh, this is something that is way more common, especially if you are the person that is providing for your family or providing a significant chunk of it, and you are an entrepreneur. This feeling of being trapped is really common. And so you really have to be clear about the external and the internal here. If you're trapped in a circumstance and can't get your way out, that's very often a depression thing, or it's just like in my case, it was one of those things where there's some financial things that I said, "Gosh, I'm just stuck and I don't know what to do." And being honest about that, and saying, "You know what, it might be time to go back and do some other things that I was doing before." What can where's my easiest path? Not just giving up, but saying, is there something that is just something I can do right now? I mean, I was ready to go drive for Uber or whatever, whatever it took, you know, to get out of the hole. And we're not out of the hole yet, I'll be honest with you, but the honest truth is that, it's that feeling of hopelessness, that being trapped, that if left unchecked will ultimately consume you, and that can lead to some of those suicidal thoughts. And so yeah. I've not personally experienced the preoccupation with death or dying, but that is a very common thing that happens when somebody is going down this pathway. The thoughts of like, maybe if I can find a way to get hit by a car or whatever, that's these kind of thoughts. Um, and this is another one that I've actually experienced. Actually, when I was a teenager, I had somebody um, reach out to me and say goodbye, and I didn't let them off the phone until help arrived, that sort of thing. And that's something that I've watched people go through. So that's a warning sign. But if you feel in that urge in yourself of saying, well, the, literally the progression of thought that I've heard this go through and kind of had some rough experiences with years ago was like, okay, I can't go until I visit these people one last time. Sort of things. If you're having thoughts like that, that's a good sign that you need help, and that you should seek help immediately if that's something that's going on in your mind. Um, getting a fair, um, so this is kind of fun. I'm being sarcastic. I shouldn't be sarcastic in a discussion like this, but um, getting one affairs in orders and things like that. This is something that I actually did have some weird kind of things going on in my head, like if I were to die, what would happen, that sort of thing. That actually is good. It's the why behind it that, if it's something like the like it says like right below this, everyone would be better off without me, or I want out of this. I can't find a way out of this being trapped in this. If if this is tied to that, then that is a sign that something is very, very wrong. If this is, yeah, this tying up loose ends is kind of that kind of way to say that. That's when there's trouble on the horizon. There's a balance of healthiness here. If it's just you're like, okay, well, if something happens to me, I don't know how my wife's going to run this business. Something that as an entrepreneur I do think about, or it's like discussions we have. And so there's some things that proactively you can take that aren't getting your affairs in order for your death, but being prepared in the event that something does happen. That's a little bit different. I just wanted to make sure I'm clear on that. But it's that reason behind it that's important. Um, and so and this can be actually something that is very don't assume you're a professional in doing this. There are days, again, depression is a medical condition, not a mood. Okay. And so there are times where somebody can be very, very happy and still be depressed. Um, it's the dramatic shifts, when they're, depressed and kind of just down and not saying anything. And then all of a sudden, the next time you see them a couple hours later or whatever, they're just very like drastically different and a little too calm. That's when it's time to ask a couple of questions, that sort of thing, or find out. A lot of these times, like these suicide hotlines, for example, a lot of times you can call them if you're concerned about someone else and get the right questions to ask. And I'm not going to pretend to be one of those people. Like I said, this is one of those things where it was, I was doing this kind of stuff 20 years ago. It's just not who I am anymore in that regards. And so, but anyway, that's some of the things that are true about depression, and what I'm doing about them is a couple things. One is that I'm just not letting it be my identity, and I'm just going to keep repeating that. In fact, I'm going to put it up on the screen one more time. That even though I am dealing with depression and have been for several months now, I'm not going to let that be who I am. There's a lot of people that are helped by my honesty and me just sharing things that I've learned. I don't have to be the one that comes up with these things. Sometimes I can just share them. And there's some opportunities like that coming up in my life, and I'm not going to let something like this get in the way of that. That's not fair to me. It's not fair to you either, but it's not fair to me, and it's not who God created me to be. And so that is something that I feel uh, yeah, very strongly that I need to be very clear about, is that this is not. I'm not allowing this to be who I am, and I don't think you should either. But at the same time, very much be aware that there are resources out there to help. This is Mental Illness Awareness Week, and not to be confused with Mental Health Month or anything like that. This is a very specific week from like, I believe October 3rd this year to October 8th, something like that. But all week this week, or that's dedicated to this. This is a in the U.S. anyway. I think it is internationally done in other places as well, either this week or other weeks. But I do want to know that I want you to know that there are resources, and there are other things that really need to be made aware of in a lot of things. At some point, I want to have a discussion in the tech world, for example, about some of the other conditions that are very even more common among people in technology. And depression is actually very common among people in technology. It can really happen. Uh, there's a lot of trigger events that can happen, and a lot of well, frankly, unhealthy patterns that happen with people in technology. That the people in technology tend to, um, you know, what's that word? They kind of rally around. They rally around like the all nighters and the stress of being in technology, and kind of the things that can be caused with. Wow, you talk about the whole feeling guilty about past things. I can't tell you how much that has come up. Even I'll be honest, this last week there was something that happened, and as soon as I saw it was happening, I was like, "Oh my goodness, that's my fault." So I owned up to it, and we dealt with it. But there's that constant thought of, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen?" And that's depression talking, and we're not having that. That's just like, no, 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 that's not who we are. So anyway, that's where we're at with that as far as the depression thing. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're talking about, I think, anxiety more tomorrow, and then we're going to talk about bipolar or manic depression, and how that is linked to um, kind of the weird balance sometimes that I've experienced in my life of depressed episodes and manic episodes and things like that, and how fortunately there's a lot of things you can do with that, and a lot of things that the modern medicine can do with that are very fortunate and keeping things balanced. But it's something that I think needs to be talked about a little bit more, and made people aware of. So I hope this was helpful to you. If there's anything I can do to help you or whatever, just leave a comment. Hopefully I'll get it. A lot of times I've been noticing that sometimes the comments I don't get to right away, I don't get alert on. But if you do see this after the fact, feel free to leave me a comment, and I will try and back to you. But yeah, so hopefully this was helpful to you, and I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day, and we'll talk to you very soon. In fact, tomorrow, same time, same channels. So we'll see you then. Cheers.